For my thoughts on all the latest happenings in the NFL in a completely relaxed, unscripted format, be sure to check out my channel, JG9 News. And now, on with our feature presentation. I'm not going to beat around the bush or keep you waiting any longer. That was awesome. Simply put, that was awesome. Ever since Nickelodeon started doing NFL games during the 2020 playoffs, they've completely changed the game with alternate broadcasts designed for kids. The dynamic duo in the booth of Noah Eagle and Nate Burleson is always incredible. It is the glue that ties the whole thing together, with their great chemistry and commentary that appeals to kids without talking down to them, while at the same time, appealing to adults watching the game and appealing to those that know football. The production quality is legitimately incredible, with creative but not intrusive graphics that help to enhance the viewing experience. In a world full of terrible alternate broadcasts designed for kids, and I'm looking at you, Toy Story and Dude Perfect, the Nickelodeon broadcast is the shining example of what a broadcast should be. But this year, they decided to do something never done before: an alternate broadcast of the Super Bowl. Excluding Super Bowl I, which was held on both CBS and NBC, this is the only time ever in the United States that the English language rights for a Super Bowl were split between multiple networks. Granted, CBS and Nickelodeon are under the same umbrella, but this was a bold choice. Sure, the Nickelodeon broadcast might be cute and all during a regular season game that doesn't have a ton of stakes, but this is the biggest game of the year. And part of the reason that the last broadcast with Nickelodeon between the Chiefs and the Raiders, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, was so heavy on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and not on SpongeBob, was because they were saving SpongeBob for the big game. And when I say they were going to go all out for this one, I meant it. You had fish in the stands. You had Allegiant Stadium turned into an underwater dome. You had a scorebug catered towards SpongeBob. You had Sandy Cheeks as the sideline reporter. You had SpongeBob and Patrick in the booth. And you even had sunlight coming into the stadium to make it seem like the game was being played below the surface. The realism to make it feel like this game was actually being played at Bikini Bottom was off the charts, as this was, by far, the most elaborate production yet. But just because it's bigger doesn't mean it's better. However, that wasn't the case here, because this was the best Nickelodeon broadcast yet, and in many ways, unironically, was better than the original broadcast on CBS. I am not even kidding. This game had better direction, better artwork, and was just a cleaner broadcast than the main one showed in front of over 120 million people. I always knew the Nickelodeon broadcast was good, but this was another level of impressive, to the point where I legitimately think that this was one of the most impressive broadcasts I've ever seen in my life. If alternate broadcasts were the Super Bowl halftime show, Toy Story and Dude Perfect are up with people. The previous Nick broadcasts were the NSYNC Aerosmith collaboration and Paul McCartney and Bruce Springsteen. And this one was Prince. This was the pinnacle. I don't see how Nick can possibly top this. Genuinely, I don't. Because this was a flawless broadcast, and I do not say that lightly. You know me. I am extremely critical of productions and broadcasts, and this was a flawless affair in my eyes. So for me to say that tells you everything you need to know. So what worked about this broadcast in particular? Well, I have to commend Nickelodeon, because I had some complaints with the Chiefs-Raiders Christmas broadcast, which was very good, and Nickelodeon fixed, quite literally, all of them. One of my big complaints with that broadcast is that if you've ever watched a football game before, you associate an orange line on the field with the first down line. However, for that game, the line of scrimmage was orange, and the first down line was candy cane red. I said that I had no problem making it festive, but there was no reason that they couldn't make the line of scrimmage, quite literally, any other color, because it takes a while to get used to, and is like learning how to ride a bike in reverse. Well, here, they listened. The line of scrimmage was blue, like the blue of Squidward's house, and the first down line was pineapple orange, like SpongeBob's house. They incorporated the colors and had it tie into the theme. Absolutely genius and brilliant, and way less confusing. Another complaint I had with the broadcast on Christmas was that the intro was way too short. It felt extremely abrupt. The broadcast switched over from Hotel Transylvania to Nickelodeon at 1 o'clock Eastern, and by 1:02, the game was kicking off, so we had no real time to get to know anyone or show off any of the animations or graphics or whatnot. The Super Bowl was way different. There was a solid 10 minutes of pregame, which allowed us to immerse ourselves in the world of Bikini Bottom, show off everyone, introduce everyone, and do some cool things graphics-wise. Obviously, not every broadcast can have this insanely high level of quality, because there's way more of a budget for the Super Bowl versus a regular season game. But hopefully, that's something that Nickelodeon can take away from this. Don't just cut to the game so abruptly. Do it like every other broadcast you've done before, and do it like the Super Bowl. Speaking of which, the Sweet Victory intro was beautiful. It was long overdue. I'll do a whole documentary at some point on the history of that song, and the Super Bowl halftime show, and the debacle that took place at Super Bowl 53, and why it was so disrespectful and distasteful. But this was long overdue and was worth the wait. They got it right. The other thing they got right this year compared to the Christmas broadcast is another thing that I hope is a takeaway for future schedules. The game has to take place indoors. The graphics look so much better indoors versus outdoors. Take the slime videos when a fan is getting slimed. At Arrowhead Stadium, it looked ridiculous because of the outdoor nature of the game and because of the weather and sun angles and whatnot. It made it very obvious that this was pre-recorded and made it seem like it wasn't even taking place at the same stadium. But indoors, in a controlled environment where you know exactly what it's going to look like, the transitions look way smoother. Everything looks significantly less clunky indoors versus outdoors, and I seriously hope that every future Nickelodeon broadcast takes place at an indoor venue for that reason. CBS will get the Super Bowl next in all likelihood at Super Bowl 62, which will probably be in Nashville if I had to guess, so this shouldn't be an issue the next time they get the big game. And my biggest complaint every year, by far, was the field goals. My God, the field goals infuriated me. You couldn't tell whether or not the kick went in because they did this stupid side angle and stayed with the main camera instead of going with a reverse camera. For the Super Bowl though, I mean, look at this!
It's beautiful!
That's what we've been waiting for!
It's what we wanted all along!
See, it's not that hard. This is way better. Significantly easier to actually see the ball and see whether or not it went in. Significantly easier to follow. And I think that's what I loved about the Nickelodeon broadcast more than anything else. I had 4 major complaints from their last broadcast in December, and they addressed and listened to every single one of them, and made incredible fixes. This is a broadcast that is willing to evolve. This is a broadcast that is willing to learn. If something doesn't work, they actually listen to the criticism and they change it. Dude Perfect broadcasts seem to get worse and worse. You can learn more about that by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Because every time I offer up criticism, the next broadcast, they double down on it. The Nickelodeon broadcast fixed every issue I had and did so flawlessly. But besides addressing the complaints, on its own, the broadcast was really dang good. First off, why the heck does Nickelodeon have the best score bug of any of the networks? I'm not kidding. How does Nickelodeon have the best NFL score bug? For some perspective, imagine if, back in the 2000s, the Grammy for Best Album went to Hannah Montana. That's what this is like. Nickelodeon should not be having a cleaner bug than every other network, but they do. This bug was distinctly SpongeBob with its beach sign theme, a la what you'd see at Goo Lagoon, while at the same time, showing you everything you need to know. There was contrast with the colors for the team and the score, the text was centered and aligned and didn't look like the first spot you'd find on Microsoft Word, and each section of the bug stood out so that the information was easy to decipher while at the same time, not looking like an eyesore. CBS put together a terrible score bug for their Super Bowl, which was a significant downgrade over what they had before. And somehow, Nickelodeon got it right. Nickelodeon is now the new king of the clubhouse for the best score bug on TV. Which leads me to the next point. This broadcast was way better produced than CBS, even if you were a football fan. You saw things on Nickelodeon that they didn't show on CBS for some reason. For example, the final shot, when Hardman scored the game-winning touchdown in overtime, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner, I thought CBS cut away from the field way too quickly. We had no time to breathe and no time to see the players celebrating, and the months of hard work and sacrifice pay off. At Nickelodeon, though, they stayed with camera one for a way more appropriate amount of time. They zoomed out, they showed the players celebrating, and only then did they cut to crowd shots. It felt way more tasteful considering the magnitude of it all. The big one that no one's talking about is the Rashee Rice play. Remember this play from early in the game? Rice runs with the ball and gets a first down, but seems to throw the ball forward to Justin Watson to get some extra yards. That was a forward lateral. Why didn't the refs call that? And if you saw the angles of the play on the actual broadcast, like you're watching right now, that's what you were thinking. Heck, I was saying that when I was watching the game with my friends. Well, the reason that the refs didn't call that was because it wasn't a forward lateral. It was a fumble. And the reason we know this? The freaking Nickelodeon broadcast, which showed a replay showing that Rice had the ball stripped out of his hands. Like, that's a big deal. That's a big play, because a ton of people were crying foul that the refs didn't call a penalty on Rice for any illegal forward pass. And CBS showed a ton of angles except for the money one, which Nickelodeon showed right away. Heck, even with overtime, here's a side-by-side comparison of how CBS explained the OT rules versus how Nickelodeon explained the OT rules. Which one is easier for the average fan to understand? Which one is easier for people watching to comprehend? Honestly, the Nickelodeon one is better. The CBS graphic has too much. The 3 timeouts for every 2 periods is just very confusing, especially because we've never even had a game come close to going into triple overtime. Nickelodeon did the better job explaining the rules than CBS, even though Nickelodeon had to build that graphic from scratch, seeing as they had never done an overtime game before. CBS had a rough day production-wise. There was one play early in the middle of the game where they almost missed the snap because they were in the middle of a graphic showing Shanahan and McCaffrey on the Broncos and how their sons were now in the Super Bowl, which is ironic because Fox, at Super Bowl 33, which involved the Broncos, also almost missed a snap. The Nickelodeon broadcast was better produced. I'm not saying it was better produced considering the circumstances. I'm saying on its own, it was better produced, period. It felt like the people in the truck for Nickelodeon knew more than the people in the truck for CBS on how to actually put on a football game. But besides the production, this doesn't work without the on-air talent and the 4-man booth of Noah Eagle, Nate Burleson, SpongeBob SquarePants, and Patrick Starr. This was the hardest game in the history of professional football to call. It's the Super Bowl, so you have to treat it seriously, but at the same time, you have to have fun with it, because it's Nickelodeon. You have to know everything there is to know about not just the 49ers and the Chiefs, but SpongeBob, and be able to make quips on the fly. You have to pretend that you're playing the game underwater, so you have to be in reality and in fantasy at the same time. You have to make the game easy to understand for kids, while at the same time, not talk down to them and make it seem like they're idiots. On SpongeBob and Patrick's side, you have to do this while voice acting for 4 hours straight and staying in character. You have to not only be insightful, but you have to be funny and true to the universe that you're in, which is tough. It's almost like how Disney characters in the park have to pretend that certain pieces and things of technology don't exist because their real-life character doesn't know what it is. Oh, and to make things crazier, you have to do this in a 4-man booth, which is an almost impossible task, because it's tough enough as it is to get a word in sometimes in a 2-man booth, let alone a 3-man booth, and let alone a 4-man booth. I honestly don't know how you do it. I genuinely don't. But they did. They all pulled it off and made it effortless. Noah Eagle, I don't care what your NBC contract says. You can never leave. You can never not do this game. You will break my heart if you ever aren't calling this. You are amazing. The quips that you had and the one-liners that you had completely off the cuff that were from random episodes of the show from over 2 decades ago were amazing.
You guys know that Mitch Wisnowski has punted a ball 74 yards. These two teams are playing as if they were trying to go jellyfish hunting without Old Reliable. There's just something off, you know? Krabby Patties for all.
Free Krabby Patties!
Be careful, they go straight to your thighs. So far, Mahomes has played like he ripped his pants.
Don't ever change, man. I mean it. Don't ever change. You are way too good at this. This broadcast wasn't just well produced and well done. It was genuinely funny. I mean, laugh out loud funny. Here are just some of the amazing lines from the broadcast, and I don't have time to show them all, but you get the idea. The humor was off the charts.
Sandy's down on the field. Does that mean she's playing in the game, too?
Well, if she is, she better get a better helmet.
Who's got it?
You have to firmly grasp it.
Firmly grasp it. The score is 3-0. 3 is my IQ, and 0 is Patrick's.
Samuel L. Jackson.
I love his movie, Eels on a Boat.
Okay, who needs a map to help find the end zone?
Leonardo DiCaprio, 25. That's about his dating history.
The only nitpick, and I truly mean it, the only nitpick I have is the model for Sandy Cheeks. That model could have used a little bit of work because it looked unnatural and looked like she was twitching half the time. I'm not sure why that was the case, seeing as SpongeBob and Patrick look fine, but other than that, I've got nothing. Seriously, I've got nothing. This was an A+ all the way around. Doodlebob appearing randomly on the screen was great. Dora the Explorer explaining the rules and acting as the rules expert was incredible. What a decision that was. And she was probably the best rules expert that Nickelodeon has ever had. Young Dylan was back doing reporting. You had no idea how happy that made me. I love Young Dylan. He is the best silent reporter Nickelodeon's ever had. To bring him back was awesome. Dylan Schefter was having fun with it and was doing a really good job, much like she did during the Christmas broadcast, which was awesome to see. The jellyfish, the bubbles, the clouds, they never interfered with the on-field action, but they added so much to the realism of believing that this game was taking place in Bikini Bottom. Seriously, this game was awesome. I am so proud of Nickelodeon for pulling this off because they did an incredible job, way better than I thought they were going to do, and I already had high hopes for them because I love this Nickelodeon broadcast. To see them pull this off, I'm so happy for them, really. They should be very proud of themselves. This was the culmination of years and years of hard work. In January of 2021, the first Nickelodeon broadcast aired, and 3 years later, to see it evolve into this is a sight to behold in all the best ways. If the CBS broadcast left a sour taste in your mouth, try rewatching the game through Nickelodeon. Because from just about every angle imaginable, the SpongeBob broadcast of the Super Bowl was the best day ever. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.